Ace Magashule has been sent a letter suspending him as the Secretary-General of the governing African National Congress. This breaking news just coming now. You'll know, of course, of the National Working Committee yesterday reaffirming the resolution of the National Executive Committee of the ANC, saying that people who are charged with corruption must step aside. Magashule, as you know, had earlier said that only the branches of the ANC could remove him. Omry Makgoale also confirmed to us on Newsfeed yesterday, speaking as the spokesperson of the ANC, that if Ace Magashule was suspended, in that case, Jessie Duarte would act as the Secretary-General, although her position as Deputy Secretary-General would effectively remain the same. This is the breaking news then, that Ace Magashule has been formally suspended as the Secretary-General of the ANC. Well, let's get some reaction to this breaking news. Omry Makgoale is a veteran member of the ANC. Omry, good afternoon to you. You're hearing this news as we hear it, that Ace Magashule has been suspended. What's your first reaction?
Well, we are relieved. We are relieved that at long last the ANC is moving forward towards cleansing itself. You know, we think it's an important step forward towards renewing the ANC, rescuing the ANC.
Do you believe that the ANC is now actually going to be a different organization without him as Secretary-General, now that this has happened, that he's actually been suspended?
Yeah, I think it's the first steps towards cleaning the ANC, towards renewing the ANC. The first steps, once Magashule is out of the office, Comrade Jessie Duarte will be there, things will start to change and the wheels are beginning to turn towards renewal of the ANC. So it is an important step forward in terms of renewal of the ANC.
It's not just Ace Magashule, of course. There are other people who have also been charged with corruption.
Yes, and they should all be removed. They should all be given letters so that they must step aside until their cases are cleared. And every person of who has been charged for whatever reason, criminally charged, when he moves out of ANC office, it's a big step forward for the ANC, because it means we are replacing somebody who is charged with somebody of a better integrity. You know, it's more towards cleaning the ANC. If you remove one crook and replace it with a decent comrade, it's a step forward.
There's going to be a lot that goes on now. It would seem, as I understand it, that Jessie Duarte would now act as the Secretary-General. She would be running the Secretary-General's office of the ANC. Is that how you understand it?
Yes, in terms of the Constitution, that's supposed to be the case until the NEC can decide otherwise. She is the Deputy Secretary-General, so she will take over until further notice. And that's in line with the Constitution, I believe, of the ANC.
The other option that Magashule has, of course, is to go to court to challenge this. It may not be him, it may be someone else. There are other people who are in the same position as he. Do you think that could happen?
Well, I think he can go to court, and but you see, ANC Constitution, it's not for the lawyers per se, you know. It's for members. And ANC, you join it voluntarily. You don't join it via the courts and so you join it voluntarily. So you have to live according to the Constitution of the ANC, you know, and so you don't have to drag us to court, because when you join the ANC, you did not join the ANC via the courts. You did not go to court to apply for membership of the ANC. So I think that people who go to court, they can, but it's not how it should be. ANC Constitution, it's for members of ANC, and nobody is forced to be a member of the ANC. If you are not happy with the Constitution, you can go if you are not happy with the Constitution. So if you want to be a member of the ANC, then you have to live according to the Constitution of the ANC. You can't take us to court for implementing, for following the Constitution of the ANC. Because you are not forced to be in ANC. You are not forced.
There are obviously details emerging now of the letter that has been sent to him, as I understand it. It's signed, as I understand this letter, by Jessie Duarte. And it says, during the period that he is temporarily suspended, that he may not carry out the duties, responsibilities of his office, that he may not represent the organization publicly or in any other forum. Do you think that that's correct? He actually can no longer represent the ANC?
Yes, it's correct. It's correct because he does not behave according to what we expect from that office of the ANC. So he should not represent the ANC until he's cleared, because he's no longer having the integrity of the office of the SG. So I think it's correct what they are saying, that he must not represent the ANC until further notice, until he can be cleared.
Could there be some kind of pushback within your movement, do you think? I mean, some kind of group of people who might say they don't accept this. We've still got an NEC meeting this weekend.
Yes, we expect that. We expect some form of pushback. Those that are supporters of Ace Magashule, and those that are charged for various things, who want to who don't want to follow this clause, this rule. They will want to push back that it should not be done, it should not be suspended. But you can't run the organization that way. We have to follow the rules. We have to follow the rules. This Rule 25.7 has to be followed. And it is our responsibility to see to it that all members respect that rule, and all members should, be subject to that rule. So anybody who doesn't want to be subject to that rule, he's free to go, because nobody is forced to be an ANC member. If you want to be an ANC member, then you have to live according to the rules of ANC. If you don't want to, you can go. Nobody is forcing you to remain. But we live according to the rules, and we expect everybody, from the president to the last person, to respect the rules of the Constitution. And this is what we expect from all.
Omry Makgoale, I'm going to ask you to stay with us if you don't mind. Veteran member of the ANC. Yes. Omry, I do have more questions for you, particularly about the sort of longer-term future of your movement. But we're joined now by our politics editor, Omry Makgoale. Omry, good afternoon to you. Breaking news then, the letter already on WhatsApp groups saying that Ace Magashule has been suspended.
Yes, Stephen. I mean, I think it's quite a groundbreaking moment. I cannot recall in the history of the ANC where a Secretary-General has been suspended. So it is quite a momentous occasion. We do know that the step-aside rule affects a number of people, but I think that for it to get to a point where a Secretary-General has to be served with a letter of suspension, I mean, it's quite unheard of. And also I do think that it can't have been easy for the ANC, and particularly for the author of the letter, which is the Deputy Secretary-General, Jessie Duarte, even though she may have come out previously against, in fact, against the action and the behavior of the Secretary-General lately.
It's fascinating because there's been a process of almost momentum. I mean, when the resolution was first, and I mean, I remember speaking to you at length about when the resolution in the NEC first came through, we knew it would be important. It's not quite a year, but gosh, it's been a long time. But there's been a long process that has seen developments moving in a way against Magashule, whether he likes it or not.
Look, the ANC has played the long game, and up to a point where it actually was frustrating for observers and even some of their members, where it seemed that it would never get to this point, because the reality is that this resolution, in fact, this action has been a long time coming, where the ANC has had a number of processes, even though it has had meetings and agreed on what it should do in terms of the resolution. It's had to form panels that are the panel that is led by the former president, Kgalema Motlanthe, which came up with some of these guidelines. In fact, Stephen, it's quite interesting what the letter says in terms of the suspension. It says that Ace Magashule must periodically report back to the SGO, which is the Secretary-General's office. So in this instance, I guess he has to report back to Jessie Duarte on a monthly basis about the progress of his letter. And it does say that after 6 months, they will review the decision. But if you look at it, that's quite an interesting development, because in terms of the original guidelines that were adopted, they were saying that cases will be reviewed yearly. So which then means that based on the progress of the case, they will sit as the NEC or either the officials or the NWC and decide whether it's still relevant to keep someone on suspension. But I guess, Stephen, be that as it may, the fact that Ace Magashule has been served with a suspension letter is quite momentous. But the big question is, if it has gotten to this point without him doing what is considered the honorable thing, which is for him to voluntarily step aside, will he take this lying down? I do not think so, Stephen. I think there is a fight coming. There's an NEC meeting, a special NEC meeting this weekend on the 8th of May. But also there have been threats. I heard you ask the question about a court case. I do anticipate that there will be that. That sounding or that warning shot has already been fired by the Fezile-Dabi region of the Free State, which is where Ace Magashule hails from.
Spoor, I'm going to ask you to stay with us. There's a lot more to talk about. Omry Makgoale is still with us, veteran member of the ANC. The leadership of the ANC are going to say that Ace Magashule and his suspension as Secretary-General is a symbol of change in the party. But we also understand that there have been people involved, implicated in corruption in the ANC for a long period of time. This is not about just one person, is it?
Yes, it's not one person. But I think it's an important step because Ace Magashule is the most senior official to be suspended. And in recent times, let me say in recent times, in the past in exile, we did have a replacement of the former SG. But this current time, since ANC in power, this is the first senior official to be suspended. And I think that the others will follow. The others will follow. Once Ace steps aside, the others will be given letters and will step aside. The ANC must be understood as an elephant, a big African elephant. When it turns, it's very slow, but it's turning, and it's turning to the right direction. So it might have been slow to turn, but it's now beginning to turn towards renewal and rescuing the ANC. We believe that these are important steps forward to recover the ANC from those that have captured it in the past years.
Omry Makgoale, I do appreciate you being with us for this breaking news this afternoon. Thank you very much indeed, a veteran member of the ANC. So the breaking news there, as you see on your screen, Ace Magashule suspended as Secretary-General of the ANC. More with our politics editor, Spoor in a moment. Stay with us. The letter now being made public, in which we can see the Secretary of Jesse Duarte, the Deputy Secretary-General, suspending the Secretary-General, Ace Magashule, as part of the step-aside debate within the ANC. You'll know, of course, that he faces charges of corruption, criminal charges relating to the asbestos project in the Free State. However, we're not at this stage aware of confirmation of other people being suspended because they also face criminal charges and also have refused to step aside. Spoor is still with us, our politics editor. Spoor, we're going to start to get these names soon, I imagine. Once these letters start to leak, they leak very quickly.
That's correct, Stephen. And obviously there are those obvious cases that are already in court, the likes of Bongani Bongo, who has already been charged, and we know they can expect the same from a Zandile Gumede, who has also been charged. I mean, we've seen ANC's deputy chair in KwaZulu-Natal taking the decision to step aside voluntarily, Omry Makgoale. But then the big question is that what then of those cases of people who have been asked by the Integrity Commission to step aside but have not been criminally charged. Now that's the case, a typical case in point being that of the Deputy Finance Minister, David Masondo. That's in relation to the allegation that he had abused law enforcement agencies to, for a lack of a better word, harass an ex-girlfriend of his. So it's people like that where it's not quite clear. But Stephen, we can anticipate that. I think this is just an important preemptive strike because that meeting of the weekend will not be an easy one. I mean, if we looked at the previous meeting of the NEC, it is clear by now that President Ramaphosa he has the necessary support and the sway in those meetings, but it still did not stop the supporters of Ace Magashule from fighting back. Remember, there was that NEC meeting of the 26th to the 28th of March, which was supposed to end on a Sunday night, but it collapsed and had to resume on a Monday, where the guidelines were discussed, including the 30-day period. Do we expect that this weekend will be plain sailing? I doubt it. I think in terms of the officials and then WC, there might be some kind of convergence and not that much of a fight back, but we do anticipate that in that special meeting of the 8th, there probably will be something, and also we will probably hear from some of those regions in Free State that had come out in support of Ace Magashule.
I mean, there are two things about this. The one is that you actually have to look pretty far to find someone who will publicly voice their support for Ace Magashule. I remember after the last NEC meeting, speaking to the regional chair of Ekurhuleni, Mzwandile Messina. As mayor, we were talking about his audit results. Of course, I asked him a question about Ace Magashule, who he has publicly supported in the past. And he said, well, we have to abide by the NEC rule, by the NEC decision. That's all he would say. The point I'm making is that there aren't many people. I mean, there's Colney House, there's
Tony Ngeni.
Tony Ngeni, my old friend. There are one or two people, you know, on Twitter. There's Kebi Mapatswe. There's another ANC MP whose name I forget. Is it Dirks?
Yes, I think it's the one who opened the court case. Yeah.
Yes.
Against Pemi Machodina, yeah.
Yes. But I mean, it's not like there are people queuing up in the ANC to vocalize their support for Magashule.
No, Stephen, hence I always argue that people who liken Ace Magashule to Jacob Zuma actually are mistaken. The two are not the same. I mean, at the time when Jacob Zuma was facing a lot of political challenges, he had solid structures behind him. KwaZulu-Natal, I mean, if you go back to the nominations for the 2007 Mangaung conference, I probably think that over 90% of those branches and those were actually in support of Ace Magashule. I can only remember of one name who was supported, Tabombege. At that time it was Wansi and Mhlongo. But if you come to the current scenario, even his home province is not united against him. The Mangaung leadership of the ANC actually came out in support of the very terms of the very resolution of the NEC in terms of step aside. So for any well-meaning and any self-respecting member of the ANC, it would be difficult for them to go against that very resolution, because ordinarily, in fact, originally, it is a resolution of conference. So anyone who wants to argue, they can take it back to the conference. And we have seen with people like Mike Mabuyakulu stepping aside, and we heard from the chairperson of the ANC in Northern Cape that there are some people in the province that have stepped aside. We've seen provinces like the Eastern Cape suspending some powerful regional leaders in that province. So it would be very difficult to apply the rule to some and not others, in as much as the supporters of Ace Magashule have argued that the law or the rule should apply evenly. In terms of ANC processes, we've already seen people doing that. But as I said, Stephen, I think we're waiting for a big fight. Whether it will be a effective fight, I'm not sure.
So, okay, now there are two. This is fascinating, because you mentioned an NEC meeting that it didn't quite collapse but had to be postponed. Now, that was a virtual meeting. If I've understood the reports correctly, this weekend's meeting of the NEC will not be a virtual meeting. It'll be a face mask to face mask and elbow to elbow meeting, I am presuming.
Well, after the leaking of the audio of the officials' meeting for some time, the ANC had been having those conversations. In fact, the last meeting of the ANC officials was a physical meeting, actually. They had a physical meeting, so it was always a matter of time before they go back to their physical meetings. I mean, I'm not looking forward to those days of camping outside St. George's Hotel.
The reason I bring this up is that it really changes the way that a meeting is held. So if you are in a virtual meeting, you can, and we know that this has happened because we've seen the reports where people in the meeting were actually messaging each other on WhatsApp or whatever it is, Telegram, I presume, during the meeting. Now, you can't do that in a physical meeting because you're not allowed in there with a cell phone, right?
Well, the ANC has always been security conscious. I mean, we know that from ANC meetings, the moment you step in, you have to hand your gadget in, and then it's put in an envelope, sealed and put aside for the duration of the meeting. So obviously, with virtual meetings, you can actually sit with a group of people around you for the duration of that meeting while you've got your speaker on or off. I mean, we've seen people being embarrassed. Remember recently in the leaked audio, there was someone calling for the head of ANC's head of economic policy, that is Enoch Godongwana, who was overheard, who had thought he had muted himself but had not. I mean, I guess the party has also been grappling with the realities of virtual meetings.
Is this a moment where Cyril Ramaphosa asserts himself as president of the party and as president?
I think it's important. I think it's his moment to do so, because for the longest time, the perception and the kind of energy that he has given off is that of a leader who is not sure of the power he commands. I mean, I've argued that Cyril Ramaphosa won a conference, but some people have countered to say only by a margin, and also it was not the top 6 he would have desired. So it was important to play that long game. But I think that for the longest time, that has been the frustration, where it was felt that President Ramaphosa does not have control of the party. But I guess this is the moment to do so. But hey, the man may not be, Ace Magashule is no Jacob Zuma, but the reality is that we know what happened when Jacob Zuma was dealt with through political processes where he was able to mobilize. Will Ace Magashule do the same? Does he have enough support? As things stand, I do not think so. But a month and a year and 3, 4, 5 months in the ANC is a long time. It depends on what happens on the ground. But Stephen, hey, it's a story we'll stay with.
There's going to be a lot more developments, a lot more reaction, a lot of prognostication, and an NEC meeting still to come for some people, I'm afraid, to spend their days outside of. Spoon Gower, thanks very much indeed. Well, breaking news, of course, as you see on your screen, Ace Magashule being suspended from his position as Secretary-General of the ANC. The letter on a WhatsApp group near you already suggesting that he is not allowed to represent the ANC in any way. In case you're wondering, he does retain his salary, his benefits as an employee of the ANC. There will be a lot of developments around the story. It is a moving story. We have not had any reaction from him. I would imagine he will still have the right to express himself at this decision. The other question that we're waiting for an answer to is whether any of the other people who are also charged with corruption have received a similar letter. It's a 20-page letter, by the way, that has been sent. Coming up.